The Rheeality Podcast. Real conversations about life, love, and business. With me, Jason Rhee. This is The Rheeality. Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Rheeality Podcast in New York. And for my first New York episode, I have one of my favorite people, Trinh, not Cynthia Trinh.
Not Cynthia.
Even though your email did say Cynthia.
It's my legal name.
It's her legal name.
By
everyone.
Cindy.
It's by Cindy. Cindy Trinh, who is an amazing photographer, activist, fellow raver. We have a very deep history of getting into a lot of fun trouble together.
This was like when we were in our teens.
2002.
Oh my God.
I looked back at some of the photos.
2002.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But what I'm trying to figure out is when, like, how we actually met. And I think we met through Key Club.
Yes. Well, it was like in high school, right? And we were at rival high schools.
Yes, Tustin High versus Foothill High.
And I think it was like Key Club events or something. Like I know that like it was some event that like where both of our high schools were present.
I think it was like Spirit Rally or something at Six
Something
Flags,
like that.
and you had like. But weren't we in the same? Even though we were rival high schools, weren't we in the same district?
Yeah,
We were the Goldfishes.
Yeah, we were the Goldfishes.
Were you in leadership positions there?
Yes, I think I was.
Okay, I was what was I? I all I know is I was impeached. I got voted in, and then I got kicked out of high school for raving too much. And
For raving too much. Too many light shows.
Too many light shows. I want to insert a picture of our light show. Okay, so going back, Cindy, I love you so much, and I'm so grateful that you're here. But tell me a little bit about how you got to New York.
So, you know, I was born and raised in Southern California. My parents are Vietnamese refugees, and so they came to California after the war. So I was born in Orange County. That's where we met. And for most of my childhood, I lived in Orange County. And it wasn't until I actually came out to New York initially to go to law school. And this was like in 2008. So I thought that was the path for me. I had initially gone because I thought that that's what my mom wanted me to do, you know, coming from a Asian refugee immigrant family. I think a lot of other immigrant families can relate to, you know, our parents' generation. They wanted us to, you know, succeed. They wanted us to have easier life than them. And so a lot of immigrant families, they always want to, you know, push their children to pursue like quote unquote practical careers. Right. Yeah. So, you know, I thought that like if I couldn't be an artist, I could be an art lawyer. So I went to law school with the goal of becoming like an intellectual property lawyer to defend artists. So when I was applying for schools, you know, I just went to the best one that I got into that gave me money. And that happened to be here in New York. So I moved. I left California. It was about time for me to leave California during that period of my life as well. I was just feeling very stuck and feeling like I wanted to leave and grow somewhere else. You know, it was just feeling like I was feeling very static there. And so it was the perfect moment for me to leave for New York. And so I finished law school and then moved to the city. I had gone to law school up in Syracuse in upstate New York. And then I moved here to the city. And since then, like when I was trying to pursue law, but I was not having a good, you know, like I wasn't having good luck finding a job because it was the recession and it was really tough. Like life was really, really tough. I was living with an ex of mine at the time. And so, you know, luckily I was able to stay here because of him and because of, you know, like living with him, and he was supporting us at the time because I was struggling to find work. And, you know, a lot of things happened throughout those years. This was like in 2011, when Occupy Wall Street was happening, and I started getting really involved in activism in New York, and I was legal observing, and I was defending people from the Occupy movement, and I started shifting like my life choices a lot. I started thinking about like what I really wanted to do with my life. And this was a hard time for me. It was really depressing. I was broke. I was broke as fuck.
God, yeah.
It was a really hard time in my life, and I didn't know what to do. I felt worthless because I had gone through, 3 years of law school, passed the bar exam. I'm still a New York City barred attorney. I went through all this, and I felt like I didn't have anything to show for it. And so, I started thinking about like what made me happy again? What did I do in my past life that just brought me like joy and fulfillment? And it was
Raving?
always
It was raving.
it was raving. It was raving. Yes. It was raving and doing live shows. Yes, 100%. So I became a full-time raver. I'm just kidding. No, I did not become a full-time raver. I just started I started taking pictures. I started thinking about like what was the last thing I did that like just made me feel happy and fulfilled, and it was like, taking pictures. And I've always been a visual person. I always liked taking pictures. I always loved photography. And this was around the time that Michael Brown was killed, and the Ferguson, riots were happening, and all the protests, and New York was just erupting in protests. And it felt like my opportunity to kind of take like my photo work to another level, right? And so I invested in a camera, and I started documenting the protests I was going to, and documenting all of the Michael Brown protests. And from there, like I have a account. It's called Activist NYC. Yeah. And from there, my pictures started, getting recognition. I started gaining a following, and then suddenly I started, being contacted by organizations and people to do photography for them. And it just clicked in my head that like this is what I was really meant to do. This is what I really want to do. I want to like take pictures and use my photography to inspire change.
Yeah.
So from there, I quit law. I was like, I can't be a lawyer anymore. I never enjoyed it. It wasn't for me. And I started pursuing photography full time, and I've been doing that photography now for like 8 years, and it's always a struggle. I mean, especially being a freelancer in New York City, it is so hard. I mean, the city is so expensive. It's tough here. Like everybody says, that's what the saying goes here. It's like if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere because it's so tough here. But over the last 8 years of doing this, I've learned so much, and I've gained so much momentum, and the work that I'm doing is just continually getting recognition, and it makes me feel like this is my real calling, and I'm so much happier doing what I'm doing now. And pivoting a career is always so scary and difficult and hard, and I think like we've known each other for so long.
We're
for
babies.
Decades.
Babies.
Yeah, for decades. And it's so funny to think about like how much your life can shift in just like the time that we've known each other. Our lives have shifted so much, and like the work that you're doing too. You've shifted past like so many times.
I finally came out.
Yeah.
Everyone knew already.
Everyone knew already. But
did you know?
I knew.
You did? Okay.
Actually, Eric Lim knew. Remember Eric?
Yeah. Well, Eric was also closeted at the time.
He knew, because there was this moment, I'll never forget it. It was outside of my house at 601 Cozad Circle.
Yeah.
You remember that house?
Yes.
So we were outside of that house.
That's where I broke Spencer's mirror.
Yeah, that's where you broke Spencer's mirror.
I was Nordic track. I was learning how to Nordic track, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Nordic track, which I still have to send Spencer a mirror because I was supposed to. But it's a dance move that you essentially look like you're Nordic tracking, and the goal was to learn how to turn because there was like a specific move to turn, and I was in his room practicing, and we would just bump trance, which also like kudos to your mom for like dealing with the late night activities that we would come traipsing in at like 4 in the morning,
Oh my God.
5 in the morning, and like just
We
like
snuck in. We
always snuck in,
Yeah,
and
we
would,
always
like,
snuck in.
you know. But then I ended up learning how to turn, and then I kicked his mirror and it shattered.
It shattered.
And that's when my bad luck started. No, but I think about that all the time too, where I'm like, you were my safe space. I think at a time where I was so closeted and so insecure.
You're so young too,
I was so young, but you brought, you always kind of brought adventure to my life. And I think that was the best part about our relationship is I remember there was a period of time we were kind of going to the gym together a lot. And then we would then go home, get ready. And then we would go out to like pretty much every club we can find, a rave club we can find. And at one point, I think we were going out like 2 to 3 nights a week.
Oh my God, we were going so much.
And then my first bride I met with you, Sue, who was my first bride.
Yeah, oh my God.
And I talk about her a lot because, when I'm speaking now, I talk about, how I met my first bride, and it was that techno club.
Oh my
and
God.
And you were there, and Eric Lim was there.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so wild, right? It's so crazy how everything kind of comes together.
Yeah. But I kind of want to revisit something because you mentioned how when you first moved to New York, you lived with your ex-boyfriend, and he kind of was somebody that at least let you live with him and kind of brought you here.
Yeah.
Right? And it kind of resonated with me because I realized that my ex-boyfriend in LA, I have to be grateful for him regardless of the traumatic relationship that was. I have to be grateful because he did let me stay with him, and I was able to find a job in LA staying with him.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of the part of the journey that we don't really reflect on too much, is like how all of those situations really do lead us to our goal.
Oh, totally.
And maybe that's really what he was there for, just to play some
I actually been thinking a lot about this, about how people sometimes enter our lives for certain purposes, for certain reasons. And, when you've lived 30 something years now, there's a lot of people that come in and out. There's the people that stick, that will be around forever. And then there's the people that will come in and out. And the ex that I lived with, we're actually still friends. Like, we actually still stayed in touch. We're still in touch, and we're still close friends. But other people in my life, I've definitely noticed how they serve a purpose for the time being, and then, you grow, and you go different paths, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to learn how to not take those exits personally. You know what I mean?
I do. I take him very personally.
I know. It's hard not to. It's hard not to take it personally because
you said we were friends.
Yeah, we did all this together. I did so much for you. I sacrificed everything for your ass.
I picked your ass up That's you. That's you to me. I picked your ass up in my Civic. Do you remember the car accident we got into?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
We were leaving a rave, and she got rear-ended so aggressively. We both, and it was like a coupe.
God.
It was like what kind of car was it?
It was a Civic DX.
And it was stick, and you were always just
Yeah. I was such a little rice racket.
You were honestly so down.
That is such a that is a fact that my friends here in New York are obsessed with. By the way, whenever I tell them oh yeah, I used to drive souped up Civics and stuff, they're like minds are blown. They're like, what? They can't imagine me, driving stick shift, racing down the California highway.
And so we were leaving a rave, and we got rear-ended so aggressively.
Oh my God, so aggressively.
I remember hearing your voice.
Oh no.
Okay, wait, but I want to revisit something. You said that. Okay, so you said that Eric knew, and so did he out me to you?
He kind of did. He was just he was like, Jason's gay, right? And I was like, okay.
And at the time, did you process? Because I feel like at the time I still didn't really understand even being gay.
Yeah.
Because it was still so it was like, oh, it was like the
Yeah.
kiss of death.
Yeah.
Back then, because I feel like it wasn't as socially acceptable as it is right now.
For me, it was like nothing.
Wow.
It was like accepting that you have black hair.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
I had no thought process really at all about it. Like because I just thought of you as you.
Yeah, but did you have queer relationships at the time?
No.
No. Was I
So-
your first gay friend?
Yeah, you were my first
Oh
gay
my
friend.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I tell you something that
Yeah.
like I've never actually like shared publicly? So I've been exploring my queerness lately, and I started like in therapy. I started like reflecting on like why I never felt like able to explore my queerness like back then when I was younger, and I had this traumatic incident that happened to me in middle school that I think was the reason why I spent so many years like suppressing this side of me. So in middle school, I had like a best friend. Her name was Michelle, and we were so close. And I think I fell in love with her. But I didn't understand my feelings about it. Like I didn't understand that I was in love with her. I was more like thinking like, oh, we're just really, really, really close friends. But I started feeling like all these like I started thinking about her and like having dreams about her, and I was like, this doesn't feel like
Wow.
just friendship, right? Or it feels like more. And I wrote her a letter. I wrote her a love letter. I don't think I've ever told you this story.
No.
I wrote her a
At
love
that time
letter.
or in therapy now?
No, like at the time.
uh-huh.
In middle school. This is in middle
Wow.
school. I must have been like in 7th or 8th grade.
Also, writing a letter at
I
that
know.
age is commitment.
It's commitment. It is. It's hard. This is before.
I wrote you a letter.
Yeah, this was before like like social media
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
blogging or whatever.
Yeah.
Even before Zenga.
Yeah.
Remember Zenga?
Zenga.
God, it was even before Zenga. Like this was like this is like this is in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so I wrote her a love letter, and like I remember being so nervous giving it to her. And when I finally gave it to her, I was just like, I had to, I was just like, I just had to like rip the Band-Aid off, and I gave it to her. And then suddenly at school, like the next day, there's this very, very, I'll never forget her, this white girl named Vanessa. She approached me with Michelle like behind her and had my letter in her hand and started screaming, was like slamming it in my face and being like, what the fuck is this shit? What the fuck is this disgusting shit? And I was like, is that my letter? And she was like, what is this? What is this? What is this? This is awful. How could you do this to her? How could you do this to Michelle? Like, this is disgusting. And ripped the letter, like literally ripped the letter in front of me. Like just tore the letter up in pieces in front of me and then threw it in my face. And then just like walked away. And from then on, I felt like I was this gross, disgusting person for having feelings for someone who was like a woman. And I think I
That
from
is
then
so
on,
traumatic.
Yeah, it was really traumatic. As someone who was like, I must have been like, what, 13, 14 at the time or something. Like, that was super traumatic for me. And from then on, I like only dated cis guys.
Wow.
Like, I mean, for most of my life, I've only had cis relationships, with like hetero cis relationships. And then I started to like unpacking, a lot of what we were going through during that time, when being gay or being queer was not as accepted, was not as open.
It wasn't not even not as accepted.
It just wasn't talked about.
It wasn't talked about, but it also was like such a far like thing where if
Yeah.
you are gay, like it's the world is, your life is over.
Yeah.
But then it was so far removed from us because we didn't really have Will and Grace. We didn't have
Yeah.
those things yet. So to everybody, it was very far out.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And growing up, I have a gay cousin who I knew was gay. Like, since we were young, I knew he was gay. And so I think like for me, it was like, oh, there's other gay people out there.
Yeah.
You know, or there's other queer people out there. But because of that traumatic incident, like I just never explored, you know, like trying to date other
Yeah.
people that were not cis het men. And so for most of my life, that's what most of my relationships were. And now it's like now I'm 39 years old and I'm single. I'm single at 39 and I'm living in New York City, you know, like the city of so many like LGBTQIA friendly folks. Like there's so many like it's so openly queer here. It's so like accepting here, and like there's so much love and support here of the queer community. And I'm finally, for the first time in my life, I'm in a position where I'm like finally exploring my queerness.
Yes.
And it's only been like a year. I've only been like trying to date like, you know, women and non-binary folks for the last year. And it's been it's been a lot of like a journey of self-reflection and like, you know, learning more about who I am and what I want in my life and what I need, right? So yeah, I mean, like, but looking back on that time, I think like if it weren't for you, like you being like my first like gay friend, like my real first gay friend, you know, if it weren't for you and it weren't for like just knowing that like my cousin who is gay, I think like, I mean, I don't know if I would be the person that I am today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like back then I knew that like, okay, there's other people out there who were queer, but I suppressed it because of the traumatic incident. But at least knowing that like, oh, there were people out there that were like me, or you know, or queer or gay, or like just there's people out there that exist,
Yeah.
that are like this, like that gave me, I think, a deeper understanding of just like humans and people and, you know, and love, right?
I mean, it's so crazy because it was so traumatic for me to come out. And I think even coming out to you, pardon me, I'm also dying of congestion and coughing, but I'm COVID free. It, I mean, it was a really troubling situation to come out at that time. And it took me a long time to come out, but I also remember distancing myself from you and your brother and your cousin Coy, because I remember I was so scared of being alienated, you know, and and at that time too, I think I didn't really give anyone the opportunity to even come in and like have a conversation with me about it. But I'm so happy that you get to explore your queerness, because, you know, I think what better time than do that. And fuck Vanessa.
Yeah, fuck Vanessa.
What's her last name? Fuck this bitch. We actually have Michelle here. Michelle.
Is this Jerry Springer?
That is really traumatic, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that is very traumatic, and no wonder you didn't feel, you know. But we also came from Orange County, I think, too.
Yes, very conservative.
And Asian, you know, immigrant families where it's definitely still not really talked about. Or
It's not. I have not ever told my mom. Like I don't tell my mom about my sexual life, obviously. I mean, she's known about my ex-boyfriends and everything, and she's met a couple of them. But, like, I'm not telling her right now that I'm, like, queer dating.
Yeah.
No way. I don't think she would ever fully understand.
Yeah.
She doesn't understand me now. She doesn't even approve of me wanting to be a photographer full time.
Yeah.
You know, she recognizes that I have a skill and that like I enjoy this and I love the work that I do, and she's starting to come around a little bit more, only because of my like recent successes and features or what exhibitions. You know, once I started like gaining like some recognition, she was like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I accept this like a little bit more," you know. But she still always constantly is telling me like, when are you gonna find a real job, or when are you, you know, she still wants me to get like a 9 to 5 office job, which I'm like, if you know like who I am at all, Mom, like you would know that that's not the life I want.
Me.
That would literally kill me. I hate the 9 to 5. It's just not for me. I recognize that it's for other people. people, and that's great, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
I just don't thrive in that structure. And as much as like it's so hard being a freelancer and it's a constant hustle, I love that hustle.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm a people person. I love connecting with folks. I love connecting with my community. I mean, this is the work that I truly, truly care about. And so my mom is still trying to accept me just being a photographer, let alone like if I came out to her as like queer, like I don't think she would get it. I think she would just be like, "What are you talking about?" Like,
well, this is a great time to mention your mom is here.
I really am on the Jerry Springer show.
Yeah.
This is the Jerry Springer.
No, you know what's funny? It took me, I mean, I came out to my parents very late. I think I came out to them in 2017. And I realized that with parents that do not speak English fluently or are immigrants or whatever the terminology is, there is a distance that we'll always have because we can't really have the same kind of conversations like you and I can have at this time.
Yeah.
So I think it's very interesting, but I think timing is everything. And I think when I came out to my parents, it was had to in that moment. And it was so dramatic in my mind and the lead up to it was so dramatic, but then I did it and it was kind of it was really for me too, which they've talked about before, but it was really for me more so than for them.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest healing moment for me. But we're going to take a break.
Okay.
And then we'll come back.
Okay.
Would you like your commercial on the Rheeality podcast? Please make sure to do it with me. Oh, that's not good.
Jason Reed.
I was waiting for that.
Because you like said it in the same exact way.
Please give me your money so I could advertise your business. Commercial. Here. Ad. Do 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 do.
Okay. Welcome back to the second part of our in-depth interview with Cindy Trinh. We were talking on the break about how we both have siblings that can eat whatever they want. Not gain a pound.
Not gain a pound. Yes.
Jennifer.
We're talking about you, Spencer and Jen.
DJ Spencer Mix It Flash. Yeah, so kind of tell me, do you feel like, okay, we also kind of were talking about how there's a difference between East Coast Asians and West Coast Asians. Now that you've been living here long enough, what do you think the difference is?
It's funny because I think growing up in California at the time that we did, I feel like we were surrounded by the ABGs.
What's the ABG?
Wait, you never heard that term?
No.
Like the Asian baby girls.
Oh yeah, like the lowercase uppercase.
Yeah.
Typing.
Yes.
That was my sister.
Yes, that was
the baby crew.
The baby, yes.
And the photos
the Asian
and
baby girls.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one voice.
Yes. And out here, it's like it's not a thing. ABG, like people are like, it's like a mystery. They've heard about the ABG. They've seen pictures of the ABG. Okay, wait. But it's not a thing.
Wait, give me a breakdown of what's an ABG, Asian baby girl. What is that?
I don't know. It's just it's a stereotype, obviously.
Yeah.
But you named it. You know,
okay.
Yeah, the uppercase, lowercase.
Yeah.
the pictures, the studio
kind of like
pictures.
the 90s Asian girl.
The 90s Asian girl.
Yeah.
But I feel like that still exists in California today. Like that whole aesthetic of like the ultra cutesy, like, like heavy makeup, like that like very long straight hair look, like the outfits, like the crop tops. That's like a California thing,
I
the
see.
crop
Yeah.
tops with like the flared like pants or whatever.
Are we two bitter Bettys?
Yes, we are. We're so anti. We're so anti. It's like that whole aesthetic of like the West Coast, like Asian baby girl. That doesn't really exist out here as much, actually.
Do you feel like dating is easier or harder here?
Oh, I don't know, because I've never really dated that much in California. I mean, dating is hard here. Dating is just hard here regardless. I think dating is just hard.
You think the hustle is harder here than in
yes.
LA?
Yes. Yes,
it
is
really,
much
because
harder.
it's already really hard over there.
I know, but
and
like
I want to
the
be
hustle
here.
is hard.
I want to be bi-coastal.
I would love to be bi-coastal too.
Yeah.
We can swap.
Oh yeah, like a house swap moment.
We gotta do a house swap moment.
Okay, I'll be the I'll be the Kate Winslet to your Cameron Diaz.
Yeah.
But I'm not rich. So.
I'm not either. I'm not rich at all. I don't know. I thought about wanting to be bi-coastal too, just because like in the winter months here, photography is very slow.
Yeah. Why don't you buy a house here?
Okay.
And then
Yeah,
I'll
that's a great
rent a
idea.
place in LA, and then we can switch places.
And we can switch.
Yeah, we'll call it even Steven.
Yeah,
We'll call
yeah,
it fair. Okay, so do you feel like you have a misconception? Like, do you feel like there's a misconception about you that other people have about you that is not true or true?
I don't know. That's a good question. I never thought about that actually. A misconception about me? I guess like a misconception about me is that because I am extroverted, people think like that's like how I am all the time or what I want all the time. But actually, I think maybe it's because I'm getting older. But like in my older age, I definitely have really valued my introverted alone time now.
Yes, me too.
I really need that.
The
We're
inner
actually
peace.
both very extroverted.
Yeah.
We're both people.
Yeah.
Like that's why
Yeah.
that's why we excel at what we do. You know, like a big part of why I'm good at like my job and like, I'm good at like taking pictures of people is because I know how to make them feel comfortable
Yeah.
with me, which is such actually like I don't think people talk about enough in photography is like that is a huge aspect of taking pictures of people.
Well, and it's a gift.
It's a gift
It's a
too
gift,
that like
yeah.
a lot of people don't have.
That's
Anyone
what the
could take-
monetization should be
Yes.
for too.
Yes.
Is the magic that you bring to someone's day.
Right.
Because you do weddings now too.
Yeah.
And I'm now beginning to understand 15 years later that yes, I'm amazing at design. Yes, I'm great at planning, but you're paying for my magic.
Yes,
You're paying for
the
the fact
magic.
that I can be thrown into a situation, still land on my feet, and make your parents who are homophobic laugh while servicing your grandmother on a golf cart.
Yeah.
And then, keeping the catering staff happy. Like,
Yeah.
that's my magic. And
Yeah.
I think with photography too, I think it's so vital for photographers to have that kind of connection with our clients, but also with
Yes.
us so that that day just feels even better.
Yes, it makes things go smoother, easier. But that requires being on.
Yeah.
You have to just be on. Like the entire time that I am working, I just have to be on.
Yes.
So like by the time I'm done, I am drained.
Yeah.
I'm drained. I'm so tired and I just like need to like
Turn off.
and be
Yes.
alone. And I think people like have this misconception of me that like it's so easy for me to just be on all the time. But it's actually not. It's
Well,
actually
yeah.
hard. It's really hard. But then that is that magic that I bring, like a lot of people that know my work that like follow what I do and like care about what I do. They always I actually was at an event the other night. I do a lot of work in Chinatown. A lot of my organizing and community activism work is in Chinatown. And I had a couple people tell me that I'm the next Corky Lee. And if you don't know who Corky Lee is, he's a historic Asian American photographer who has been documenting the movement since like the 50s. He's been documenting the Asian American movement since the 50s, but he passed away last year from COVID. And it was a huge, huge blow to the community. And it was a huge loss. And, with all the activism work I do now and all the community work I do now, people say these things that like, oh, like you're everywhere. I see you photographing everywhere. You're like the next Corky. I can never, ever, ever fill the shoes of Corky Lee. And I can't agree with that statement that I'm the next Corky. I know what people are trying to say, but I'm not, I can never fill his shoes because he spent 50 something years documenting the Asian American community. I'm just barely starting in comparison to him.
Yeah.
But I like to think that I'm like continuing his legacy, right? And continuing, but he wanted to pass down his work onto the next generation. And I'm kind of that next generation that is like fulfilling like the legacy that he left behind. But like hearing that, hearing people like tell me I'm the next Corky Lee or whatever, I realize like how much impact I can have.
Yeah.
And having that impact, it's a lot of pressure too.
Yes.
You know, it's like the pressure of it. So constantly having to like feel like I have this weight, you know, like, or constantly feeling like I need to
Responsibility.
fill these shoes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That is a hard weight on my shoulders. And I think people assume that it's easy for me. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not easy for me at all. And so I constantly am putting so much pressure on myself to be amazing, to like have to achieve all these things. I get really bad imposter syndrome. Like I
Oh, yeah, me
constantly,
too.
oh my God, my imposter syndrome can get so bad because
Debilitating.
it's debilitating. I'm always constantly feeling like I'm not good enough,
Yeah.
that I can never be good enough, that I'm never going to succeed, that, you know, it just constantly being like, what am I doing? Like, is this even worth it? You know, like,
yeah, but we're so hungry to create and, you know, and be an activist and be
Yes.
a representation that we didn't see in our youth,
youth,
right? And I
yeah.
think that's such a that's a very interesting kind of perspective on it because, you know, the last time I was here, by the way, I wasn't sober. And I'm sober since February. So I'm like fully sober. And I realized that for me, sobriety and this journey that I've been on, it's making me realize that I've been using different things to cope.
Yeah.
And my way of escaping from being the on Jason who make people laugh and who's being a voice for the minorities in the wedding industry and like doing all these things that, again, I'm actively pursuing it.
Yeah.
I'm actively wanting a TV show. I'm actively doing a podcast in
Yeah.
my Airbnb in my room.
With your old friend.
Yeah, I'm like trying to schedule things like and every time I realize like, oh, no wonder I ended up, you know, falling into addiction and finding different outlets of drugs,
Yes.
drinking,
Yeah.
food, even food right now.
Food
You know, I'm
for
so
me.
fluffy. I'm extra fluffy.
I'm okay. I'm fluffy too. It's okay.
But I realized it's because I now took away drugs, I took away alcohol, and now I'm left with food as a coping strategy. So when I'm escaping or when I'm at my like depleted level, right, after a big wedding or something, I'm looking to kind of escape.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I've been processing too is I'm realizing it does take a lot out of me. I
does.
don't have an unlimited well of energy.
I don't either.
And because I'm also bad with boundaries, because I have no boundaries.
Too.
And and this is where I think where we were able to have the adventures that we had because we had no boundaries.
Yeah, we did not have boundaries.
Yeah, but and again, I think it's one of those things where I think there's that saying about how like you'll never regret like as an old person, you'll never regret that party that you went to, or you'll never really regret that like saying yes to that night out, because for us, like I really had some amazing experiences.
Oh, totally.
You know?
And I'm so glad. Actually, I was just talking to Koi, my cousin, about
Hot.
this.
Hot chef.
Everyone.
Chef.
We were just talking about this like the other night about how we're glad that we kind of got it out of our system when we were younger.
Yeah.
Because now in my 30s, I'm like, I don't have that energy.
Everything hurts.
Everything hurts. I've got injuries. My back always hurts. My neck always hurts. My knee always hurts. My ankle always hurts. Like I'm always like hurting. And I'm like, I just don't.
You also Nordic trekking in the middle of a dance floor with your two pigtails. We were out and about.
We were out and about, but
Yeah.
like we always like me and Koi love reminiscing about those times. 'Cause we were going out like 3-4 times a week. Like
Yes.
that. This is insane. Like
Yes,
we were out till 3-4 in the
used to roll up
morning.
Your,
Like,
your t-shirt sleeve.
oh yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I still
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, and you used to wear short shorts, and then you would just be like, I mean, we went out to dance. Like,
We
let's
were
be
dancing
clear, like,
hard.
We were not into the drugs right away. We went out like for a while sober, and being like, you know, we don't need like plur, peace, love, unity, respect. You know, and then we're like, oh, ecstasy.
Oh, ecstasy will keep me up later
Yeah.
so I can dance more. Let's do
And then
it.
all of a sudden, you know, cut to all of our precious moment eyes.
Yes.
You know, all of our Japanese anime eyes twinkling.
Oh my
with
God.
Vicks all over.
Vicks. Oh my God, so many Vicks. There's that photo. Oh my God, I was just showing Koi. There's that photo where like his mouth is just wide open
He's
and
so
he's holding
excited.
a Vicks in his.
Yeah.
And his
I
whole
mean,
face is just glossy from the
and I am actually really glad that we got that out of our system because I think
Yes.
we had so many adventures. But I mean, again, through my sobriety now, like I obviously found other pockets of drugs and other
Yes.
other
Yeah.
communities that were not the best. But kind of going back to what you were saying, I do think that there's a magic about people like us that move within spaces and bring light to darker situations. And I think that's kind of the beauty of this conversation I wanted to have is that I realize more and more we all kind of have so much more in common with each other, regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of where we live, regardless of what we do. We all kind of are floating throughout this world the same way,
Yeah.
traumatized, tired,
Traumatized
but
and
still
tired.
wanting to do something greater,
Yes.
And I think that's what makes you an artist, right?
Oh, thank you.
You're an artist.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe where they talk about like all of, like from Edgar Allan Poe to whomever, like all of these like deep, darknesses that come with being an artist. But I think that's kind of what we do. So now we're trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we continue spreading our magic without depleting ourselves?
Yeah, and that's hard, and it's a lot of work. And this is what I think about a lot too. Is whenever I think about legacy, there's this fucking Subway ad in New York that's so ridiculous to me. There's a Subway ad that like basically is a picture of like this father holding a child, and over the picture it says, "What will your legacy look like?" And a lot, I think for a lot of people, and that's totally fine because I love my friends and my family who have kids. I love that they have kids, and I'm so happy that they love that they have kids. And having a family is the most important thing to them, and I'm so happy for them. But it's never been something I wanted. It's
Yeah.
never been something I thought about. For me, my legacy is my work.
Yes.
I want my work to be remembered. I want like all my activism work and the protest photography and all those images I've captured of our movements. I want that work to be remembered 50 years from now, just like how we look back at the civil rights movement and we look at the pictures from the civil rights movement. I want people 50 years from now to look at what we were going through in this country the last especially these last few years.
Yeah.
During the Trump administration.
That's kind of when I started waking up to it. 'Cause I was super late to the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
During Black Lives Matter, during Stop Asian Hate, all of these massive movements that have been happening the last few years. These are moments in our history that we will remember forever. And so my legacy that I want to leave behind is my work, is these me capturing these moments in our history and us remembering that so that we can continue to learn and continue to grow and continue to evolve, as in our fight, right? In our fight for change, in our fight for our liberation. So yeah, it's a lot of what I've been thinking about is legacy.
Yeah. That's really interesting because I share that legacy goal with you where I want it to mean something that I was here,
Yeah.
And at the same time, I really do believe that joy is something that I want to bring.
Yes.
But I didn't realize how broken I was while I was still operating from a place of giving joy to everyone else. And so, do you have any tips or things that you do now that give you peace? Like after a crazy, day of shooting or something, what is it that brings you peace?
Oh, the biggest piece lately for me has been I finally I'm proud of myself because this is a big New York achievement and milestone, is that I finally got my own 1-bedroom apartment in New York, which is so hard. I mean, as a struggling artist for the last for the first years that I've been doing this, I had to live in rooms with roommates, awful roommates.
Yeah, I remember you telling me some of the terrible
Oh
stories.
my God, awful roommates, and just struggling so much to pay rent and and just make things happen for me, and so I finally reached a moment, finally in my life, that where I can just have my own place. And that is such a huge accomplishment for me.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's been my sanctuary. Like
Oh, I
every
love
time
that.
I have like a really long, hard day, especially like photographing all day or like, photographing like a hard event, like hard job, like a big event or something. The best thing for me is to just like go home and turn on some music, like meditate, just sit on my couch, fire up my projector, watch some Netflix or something,
Yeah.
just unwind
Yeah.
and have this like peaceful, safe space now. It's my sanctuary. Like no like crappy people like, like making noise, no shitty like roommate like, complaining or whining or whatever, like I don't know, or just like messing up the place, like just my own sanctuary. That has been a huge godsend for me. And honestly, like we've talked about our vices, and food is a vice of mine, but it's also so much of a comfort for me. Like,
Yeah.
like honestly, like when being a photographer is a very physical job, and so when I'm constantly moving, if I'm shooting something where I'm constantly, especially weddings, right? If I'm constantly moving, I'm constantly like active, like I love a good comfort meal
Yeah.
after a long day of shooting.
Yeah.
It's just like it feels so good to just like sit in one place for a while and just like eat like a really really hot bowl of noodles or something. Like
Yes.
comfort food. Like that is my ultimate like unwinding moment. I
Yeah.
just love that. Yeah.
So what is in New York, what would you say is your favorite? Like what's your big like favorite food right now? Like what do you just can't get enough of?
Ugh, I mean, I'm a fanatic for noodles. Everybody knows
Noodles.
this. I love noodles. Ramen and pho are like my top
Nudes.
two. Nudes, yeah.
Yeah.
I just like I don't know. There's something about a big hot bowl of steaming noodles, especially right now when the weather is like
A
it's like
big,
big
hot bowl of steaming nudes.
I know,
How
right?
are we single? How?
How am I single?
Where is a good place to get a hot bowl of
I
nudes?
mean, there's so many places. I mean, New York. I'm because I do a lot of work in Chinatown. I'm usually always in Chinatown. So, for me, it's like being in Chinatown.
Yeah.
Like I there's so many options there.
Yeah.
Kitchen Go Oot is like my favorite Vietnamese spot in Chinatown. That's where I usually like to get pho. I have a number of ramen places that I love. I love Ichiran. I love Chuko Ramen out in Brooklyn. I love Ramen Ya in West Village. I love Toto. I love Hita-chan in Midtown. Like there's so many good ramen spots in New York. So ramen is always a good comfort food. And in Chinatown too, there's like a lot of like wonton. Like there's this wonton noodle soup spot that I love. Yeah, it's just like there's so many good options
Yeah.
in New York for food, which is like why I love it here so much. And it's just like I think LA is the same. LA and New York is just like melting pots of so many different like
Cultures, yeah.
cultures, and you could get like food from so many different like cultures here, which I love. Like I don't think there's any other place, like I can't live in a city where I can't access like a multitude of different cuisines
Yeah.
at any time that I want. Like I think I definitely need to always be living in a place where I can like get like tacos on one block and like ramen on the other block, I think LA also has like the best food. I mean, so much good Asian food in LA too, and also good Mexican food, and like so many cultures there as well. And so yeah, it's just like being in a city with like all these different immigrant communities that bring like so much immigrant food, I that's something that I value so much in the
Yeah.
city that I live in. So New York is one of the best places, honestly, for finding my comfort foods.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's next for you? Like what is a big goal for you right now? Like what are you looking forward to?
So, some big things I've got going on. I'm getting published this fall by Aperture. It's a
Oh my
huge photo
gosh.
publication,
Yeah.
yes. And the book is all about the Black trans liberation movement here in New York the last couple years. So that is coming out, and in the process of that book coming out, I've been talking to a producer who has been following my work. He's seen me out at protests, and he's been following my Activist NYC account for a while. And he reached out and was like, I really want to produce like your own book. And I was like, wait, what? And I think that's like the goal of a lot of photographers or a lot of artists, to have like your own artist book or your
Yeah.
own photo book. And so we got to brainstorming and talking, and it's all very much like in like the beginning phase right now, but I thought about how there is no other current like photo book documenting the Asian American movement. And, as Asian Americans, we've gone through some significant moments in our communities the last couple of years with the pandemic, with all the anti-Asian racism and violence and hate that's been going around, not just in America, but around the world, us being blamed for COVID, even though like obviously it is not our fault.
Yeah.
And I think it really brought a moment of reckoning to the Asian American community, and that's when we saw Stop Asian Hate and all the protests that were happening like last year. And I was documenting pretty much every single protest last year, coming out of the Stop Asian Hate movement. And so we talked about making a book
That's amazing.
of my photos from the Stop Asian Hate movement, and leading into my photos also of like my community activism work in Chinatown, and showing like my photos showing the community coming together, building with one another and supporting one another during these dark, difficult times. So that's a project I hope to work on in the next year. I mean, making a book is hard, but it's something that I want to work on the next year. Other things that I definitely been thinking more about is just overall like expanding my body of
Yeah.
work. That includes like thinking about other projects I want to do. Like I did also over the pandemic, I did a project about Asian American like women and femmes who shared their stories of being harassed or sexually assaulted, and this was born out of the like after the Atlanta shooting when like all those Asian women were murdered by that white guy, and it sparked conversations about like racism and sexism and misogyny and patriarchy against Asian women, and the stereotype that Asian women are submissive or kinky or like concubines,
Yeah.
or and so like that project really fueled me to like think about like, okay, doing more work centering my Asian identity as well as long as my queer identity. So something else I'm currently working on is doing a book, like a booklet, and working with some Vietnamese folks, some two other really amazing queer Vietnamese women and femmes. We're doing a dinner series where we bring together like Vietnamese folks, and we just come we're just like hanging out, having dinner with one another, connecting with one another.
Love that.
But every dinner has someone who cooks a different signature dish. And so in that signature dish, like we tell the story of why this person chose this dish, why it means so much to them, why it's their favorite dish, and we're gonna make like a little recipe book out of it.
Love
But it's not
that.
just gonna be like a cookbook; it's gonna be like a storybook
Yeah.
too. It's gonna be like a hybrid of like storytelling and recipe book. And I think like as people who come from like Asian culture, like our food is so important to our culture, you know? And like growing up, like sitting around the dinner table with our family, that's such a pinnacle like moment for every Asian family.
Yeah.
Like every day sitting around a dinner table and like sharing a
That
meal
same
with
bowl
one
of
another.
rice.
Yep, same
Every
every day. You know, like that is, but that's how we bonded as
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
And like that's how I like to bond with my friends now.
Yeah.
My chosen family.
Yeah.
You know, my
Same.
chosen family now, like the way I like to bond with them is like having a meal together
Yeah.
and sharing with one another. So that's another thing I'm working on. Like I just like a lot of different projects that I have on my mind lately.
Yeah.
But but my photography is always first and foremost about my community, about the activism work that I do, the social justice work that I do. Like that's what I care about the most. But obviously, like I gotta make a living, and being a full-time photographer now is hard,
Yeah.
and trying to make money from it is really hard. So it's also trying to balance like picking up work that like pays me too.
Yeah.
So I have been doing more wedding work, especially the last 2 years.
That's great.
And especially this year because as weddings are like
Non-stop.
nonstop this
Non-stop.
year. Like all the weddings that were postponed,
Yeah.
last 2 years are now happening this year.
That's
Yeah.
amazing, and I love all these projects you have coming. I mean, honestly, I think that's why I was so excited to have this conversation with you, because you've been a part of my community for a very long time. But I love the work that you're doing, and I'm so
Oh,
proud of
thank
you. And
Yeah.
and I'm super grateful that you were such a light to me at a time that I really needed that kind of support. And
You
gave
were
it
my
to me.
light too.
Yeah,
We
so-
were like each other's light.
Yeah.
Oh.
We were each other's glow stick. Okay, well, you can check out all
my
of Cindy's amazing work. I'm going to put the links in the bios and the links below.
you.
And I'll throw in a little raver photo just so that everyone really
Yes.
really understands
To
the
really
in-depth
understand.
of what we were doing. And we were way ahead of our times. This is before EDM was big. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I love you.
Thank you for having me.
All
really
right.
appreciate it.
Love ya.
Yeah, love
Bye.
you too. Bye.
Ooh, wait, don't go yet. Make sure you subscribe and like and follow and transfer me via Venmo. Thanks for listening.